My name is Emma Harlan, and I turned 16 standing in the middle of a Colorado forest, holding a rusty little hatchet, a dead phone, and a granola bar that had been thrown at my feet, like I was a stray dog. That morning was supposed to be my birthday surprise. At least, that was what I had been told when we loaded the cooler, the sleeping bags, and the cheap folding chairs into the car before sunrise. Nobody sang. Nobody handed me a card. The whole drive felt wrong, like everyone knew the ending except me. When we reached the campsite, I tried to pretend it was normal. I helped carry the firewood, unpacked the food, and smiled when I was told this trip would teach me what kind of girl I really was. The next morning, I was sent past the trail to collect better wood. I was gone maybe 40 minutes. When I came back, I heard laughing before I saw the car. Then I heard the sentence that froze me in place. If she wants to survive, she'll figure it out. I stepped out from behind the trees and everyone went quiet. The tent was already packed. The trunk was open. I asked if this was some kind of joke. My dad looked at me like I was embarrassing him and said, "Happy birthday. Time to grow up." I tried to grab my backpack, but he pulled it away. My mother would not look me in the eyes. The car doors slammed. The engine started. And as they drove off, their laughter echoed through the trees while I stood there waiting for brake lights that never came back. Before I tell you how long I was trapped out there, and why my mother came begging 1 year later, tell me this. What time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels before the truth catches up to them. For the first 10 minutes after the car disappeared, I honestly thought they were going to come back. I stood there with my hands shaking, watching the empty dirt road, waiting for the sound of tires crunching over gravel again. I kept telling myself this was some twisted birthday test, some cruel joke that would end with my father stepping out of the car and saying, "See, you survived 10 minutes." But the forest stayed quiet. The only sound was wind moving through the pines and my own breathing getting faster. I picked up the granola bar my mother had dropped on the ground and stared at it like it was supposed to explain everything. Then I checked my phone. 3% battery. No signal. I raised it over my head, turned in a circle, walked toward the road, walked back toward the campsite, and got nothing. Not one bar. That was when the confusion started turning into fear. I knew the campsite was close, but after pacing around and trying to follow the tire marks, I realized I had already lost track of which direction they had come from. Everything looked the same. Tall trees, brown dirt, broken branches, the fire ring, the picnic table, the trail that split into two smaller trails. I was 16, not some survival expert. My father had spent years calling me soft, dramatic, too sensitive, but he had never actually taught me how to survive in the woods. He had only taught me how to be scared of disappointing him. I tried walking the way I thought led back to the parking area, but after 20 minutes, I ended up at the same fallen log I had passed before. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, but because my brain could not accept what was happening. My own family had driven away and left me alone on my birthday. By late afternoon, the air started getting colder. I had on jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie, but Colorado weather changes fast when the sun drops behind the trees. I used the hatchet to cut a few small branches, but my hands were clumsy, and every sound made me flinch. I kept thinking I heard the car coming back. I kept turning around. Nothing. I ate half the granola bar slowly, even though I wanted to swallow the whole thing. I told myself I had to save some because they might not come back until morning. That thought made my stomach twist. Morning. I had never spent a night outside alone in my life. When it got dark, the forest turned into something completely different. During the day, it was just trees and dirt and sunlight. At night, it felt alive. Branches cracked somewhere behind me. Something small moved through the leaves. An owl screamed once and I nearly dropped the hatchet. I found a space near a big rock, pulled dead branches around myself like that could protect me, and curled up with my knees against my chest. I did not sleep much. I kept seeing my mother's face through the car window. She looked back once. I know she did. But she did not open the door. She did not tell him to stop. She did not call anyone. The next morning, I woke up stiff, freezing and angry in a way I had never felt before. My phone was dead. The last bit of granola bar was gone before noon. I walked until my feet hurt, following anything that looked like a trail. Twice I thought I heard voices, but it was only wind. I found a narrow stream and stared at the water for a long time because I knew drinking from it was risky, but being thirsty felt worse. I drank anyway. The water was so cold it hurt my teeth. I kept moving because sitting still made me feel like I was giving up. Every few minutes, I shouted for help. My voice got weaker each time. By the second night, I stopped thinking about birthday candles and started thinking about whether anyone at school would ask where I was on Monday. Would my teachers call home? Would my parents tell them I ran away? Would people believe them? The answer scared me because my father was good at sounding reasonable. He could make anything my fault. On the third day, I was dizzy. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. I had scratches on my arms, mud on my jeans, and my throat was so dry I could barely speak. I remember leaning against a tree and thinking that if I sat down, I might not get back up. Then I heard a child laugh. Not my family's laugh. A real one, somewhere ahead of me. I forced myself to move toward it. I came through the trees and saw a family near a small campsite, a woman pouring water into a metal cup, a man setting up a camp stove, two kids arguing over a bag of marshmallows. They all froze when they saw me. I must have looked wild. I tried to say help, but my voice cracked. The woman ran to me first. She wrapped a jacket around my shoulders and asked where my parents were. I said, "They left me here." She thought I meant I got separated. I shook my head and said, "No. They drove away. On purpose." The man's face changed. He gave me water, slowly, little sips, and kept asking if I knew my name, my age, where I was from. I told him my name was Emma Harlan. I told him I had just turned 16. I told him my father had said if I wanted to survive, I would figure it out. After that, nobody spoke for a few seconds. They walked me to a ranger station, and a ranger called my parents first. No answer. Then he called the emergency contact listed in an old school record I remembered. My grandmother Rachel in Denver. When she arrived, she did not yell. She did not ask what I had done to deserve it. She just looked at me like her heart had broken in half, took off her coat, wrapped it around me, and said, "You are safe now." I wanted to believe that being found meant the nightmare was over. I had no idea that surviving the forest was only the first part of learning what my family had really done to me. My grandmother drove me back to Denver in complete silence for almost 20 minutes. I sat in the passenger seat wrapped in her coat, holding a bottle of water with both hands because my fingers would not stop trembling. Every time a car passed us, I flinched. I kept expecting to see my father's truck behind us, angry that someone had found me before he was ready. When my grandmother finally spoke, her voice was low and careful. She asked me one question. "Did they leave you there on purpose?" I said yes. She pulled over on the shoulder, put the car in park, and covered her mouth with one hand. She did not say my father would never do that. She did not say there had to be another side. She believed me, and that almost made me cry harder than being abandoned. At her house, she made me soup, gave me clean clothes, and told me I could sleep in the guest room as long as I wanted. That first night, I slept with the lamp on. For weeks, I could not stand total darkness. I would wake up hearing tires on gravel or laughter moving through trees. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, paperwork, and adults speaking in careful voices. My parents did not come for me. My father did not call to apologize. My mother sent one message through someone else saying everyone needed time to cool down. Like I had slammed a door after an argument. Like I had not spent 3 days lost, hungry, and terrified because they decided my birthday should be a lesson. My grandmother wanted to push harder legally, but I was scared. I know that might sound strange, but when you grow up with someone like my father, fear does not disappear just because you leave the house. It lives in your body. It tells you to stay quiet so things do not get worse. So I changed schools. I stayed with my grandmother. I stopped answering any number I did not recognize. I did not go back for my clothes, my old notebooks, or the birthday card I had secretly hoped might be waiting somewhere. Nothing was waiting for me. At my new school, people thought I was shy. They did not know I was measuring every room for exits. They did not know I jumped whenever a man raised his voice. They did not know I hated the word strong because my father had used it like a weapon. My counselor suggested I join a club, something that made me feel connected again. I almost laughed when I saw the outdoor club flyer on the bulletin board. Hiking, maps, first aid, fire safety. I wanted to rip it down. Instead, I signed up. The first meeting, I nearly walked out. Then the instructor, a soft-spoken woman with gray hair and muddy boots, said something I never forgot. Survival is not about proving you are fearless. It is about knowing when to ask for help and how to make good choices when you are scared. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, trying not to cry. That was the first time anyone had connected survival with wisdom instead of cruelty. I learned how to read trail markers, how to carry a whistle, how to filter water, how to tell someone your route before you leave. Every lesson made me angrier because none of it looked like what my father had done. He had not taught me survival. He had abandoned me and called it parenting. A few months later, I got a part-time job at a small independent bookstore in Denver. It smelled like paper, coffee, and dust in the best way. The owner let me organize the young adult section, and for the first time in a long time, I felt useful without being afraid. I made a few friends. Not many, but enough. I started laughing again, quietly at first, then for real. My grandmother never pushed me to forgive anyone. She only told me that healing did not mean pretending it never happened. Sometimes my brother Jordan would send me a blank message, then delete it. Once he sent a meme and wrote, "Hope you are okay." I stared at it for an hour and did not answer. He had been in the car that day. He was only 14, and part of me knew he was a kid too, but another part of me remembered his face turned toward the window while I stood outside begging them to stop. My mother tried a few times from new numbers. I blocked each one. My father never reached out directly. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. A whole year passed that way. I turned 17 without a party, but my grandmother put one candle in a cupcake and sat beside me at the kitchen table. I did not make a wish. I did not need one. I had already survived the thing that was supposed to break me. I thought the past was finally losing its grip. Then one afternoon, while I was shelving books near the front window, I looked up and saw my mother standing on the sidewalk outside the store. Her hair looked thinner. Her face looked older. Her eyes were red like she had been crying for hours. For 1 second, I forgot how to breathe. She pushed the door open, looked straight at me, and whispered, "Emma, please. You have to save your father." I did not move at first. I just stood there with a stack of paperbacks in my arms, staring at the woman who had watched a car drive away from me 1 year earlier. Customers turned their heads because the bell above the door had rung too sharply, and my mother was already crying before she reached the counter. She said my name again like she still had the right to make it sound small. "Emma, please, I need to talk to you." I put the books down slowly and told her not here. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Inside, my chest was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. She tried to grab my hand, but I stepped back. That tiny movement made her face crumple like I had done something cruel. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because she seemed shocked that I did not want to be touched by the person who had left me in the woods. I walked outside, and she followed me to the side of the building near the alley where employees took breaks. The moment we were alone, she started talking too fast. She said she had been looking for me, that my grandmother would not cooperate, that she had missed me every single day. I let her talk until she finally got to the real reason she was there. My father had collapsed at work. High blood pressure, chest pain, stress, maybe something worse. His business was falling apart. He had lost customers, missed payments, and was behind on the storage unit where he kept his landscaping equipment. She said he was not sleeping. He kept saying my name. He kept talking about that trip. She said he needed peace, and the only person who could give it to him was me. I stared at her for a long time. Then I asked, "Does he want to see me because he loves me, or because he finally needs something from me?" She blinked like the question had slapped her. She said it was not like that. She said he was sorry in his own way. That phrase almost made me lose control. In his own way. People always say that when someone is too proud to actually apologize. I asked if his own way included calling the police after leaving his daughter alone in a state forest. She looked down. I asked if his own way included coming back before dark. She started crying harder. I asked if his own way included telling the truth afterward, instead of letting people think I had chosen to stay away. She covered her mouth and whispered that he thought I would find my way back in a few hours. He thought I needed to toughen up. He thought I would thank him someday. I said I was 16. It was my birthday. I was lost for 3 days. She said she knew. I said, "No, you do not. You were in the car. You had heat, food, a charger, a way out. I had a dead phone and a hatchet." She said she wanted to stop him. She said she was scared. I leaned closer and said, "You were not too scared to laugh." That shut her up. Her face changed because she knew I remembered. Maybe she had spent a year telling herself she had only cried, only looked away, only followed orders. But I heard her that day. It was not a big laugh like his. It was nervous, weak, ugly, the kind of laugh people use when they are trying to survive someone else's cruelty by joining it. That did not make it harmless. She started saying she was sorry, over and over, but every apology turned back into a request. "Come to the hospital. Just let him see you. Tell him you forgive him. He needs a reason to keep fighting." I asked her what reason I had been given to keep fighting in the forest. She had no answer. Then she said something that showed me exactly why she had really come. She said, "If he loses the business, we lose everything." There it was. Not, "I want to know if my daughter is okay." Not, "I should have protected you." Not, "I failed you." She needed me because the man who abandoned me was finally afraid of being abandoned by everyone else. I looked at her, and for one strange second, I saw how small she was. Not innocent. Small. A woman who had spent years hiding behind fear until fear became her excuse for everything. I thought about the girl I had been 1 year earlier, standing in the dirt, still willing to forgive if someone had just turned the car around. If my mother had opened the door that day, I would have climbed in. If she had called the ranger station before sunset, I would have believed she cared. If she had shown up the next morning, I might have let myself be held. But she had waited until my father needed saving. So I smiled, not because I was happy, but because the answer was finally easy. I said, "If it were a year ago, I would have said yes. But not now." She whispered my name like a warning. I told her to leave before I called someone. She stood there crying while I walked back inside. My hands shook for the rest of my shift, but I did not cry. Not until later. Not until I got home, locked myself in the bathroom, and realized that saying no had not made me cruel. It had made me free. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. My mother had found me once, and now that she knew where I worked, she was not going to disappear quietly. The first message came that night. It was long, full of words like regret, family, healing, and forgiveness. She wrote that my father had been raised hard, that his own childhood had damaged him, that he did not understand how dangerous the forest really was. I read that sentence 3 times. He did not understand. My father owned trail maps, camping gear, a 4-wheel drive truck, and a business that worked outdoors half the year. He understood plenty. He just thought my fear was useful. I deleted the message. The next morning, there were 4 missed calls from unknown numbers. By lunch, my grandmother had received one, too. Then the bookstore owner pulled me aside and said a woman claiming to be my mother had called the store asking for my schedule because there was a family emergency. My whole body went cold. That was when I realized my mother was not trying to reconnect. She was trying to corner me. I called her from the bookstore office with my manager standing nearby. The second she answered, she started crying again. I told her very clearly that if she contacted my job one more time, I would report it as harassment. She said I was being heartless. I said, no, I am being clear. She said my father was worse, that the doctors told him stress could make everything more dangerous, that he kept asking for me. I asked if he had asked for me when I was missing. Silence. I asked if either of them had called a ranger that first night. Silence again. Then I asked the question I had been carrying for a year. What did you tell people when I did not come home? She said they told neighbors I was staying with my grandmother after a fight. A fight. I had been missing in the woods, and they turned it into a teenage attitude problem. I felt something inside me go still. Not numb. Focused. She tried to explain that my father made the decision, that she did not know how to stand up to him, that Jordan was scared, that everything got out of control. But every sentence ended in the same place. Please come back. Please forgive him. Please help us keep the business. Please do not let this destroy the family. I told her the family was destroyed the moment they drove away. She said I did not understand what adult life was like. Bills, pressure, marriage, fear, reputation. I almost could not believe she had said reputation. My father had left his daughter in the forest, and she was worried about what people would think if they knew. After I hung up, I sat in the office for a long time. My manager asked if I wanted to go home. I said no. I needed to finish my shift because finishing normal things made me feel in control. But that night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about the town where I grew up, about all the people who probably still saw my father as a tough but decent man. He had always been good at that. At church cookouts, he carried folding tables. At block parties, he told jokes. With customers, he played the hard-working small business owner who just believed young people needed discipline. Men like him survive because people confuse confidence with character. I did not want revenge at first. I want to be honest about that. I wanted distance. I wanted quiet. I wanted my life in Denver with my grandmother, my job, my classes, my outdoor club, my little routines that made me feel safe, but my mother would not let me have quiet. She messaged an old classmate. She contacted a former teacher. She even sent my brother Jordan to text me, "Dad might die, and you do not care." That one hurt. I stared at his message for a long time before writing back. I cared when I was begging from outside the car. Did you? He did not answer. The next day, my mother sent one more message from a new email address. She said, "If people find out, your father will never recover." I read that line and finally understood what power I had. Not lies, not threats, not anything illegal, just the truth. The thing they had hidden for a year was stronger than every excuse they had built around it. I opened my laptop. My hands were steady. I wrote the story from the beginning. I wrote about my 16th birthday, the camping trip, the sentence my father said, the car leaving, the 3 days, the ranger station, my grandmother, and the year of silence that followed. I did not call him names. I did not exaggerate. I did not add anything that had not happened. Before posting, I sat there for almost an hour, staring at the screen. Part of me was still that girl in the forest, afraid of making him angry. Then I remembered what my outdoor instructor had said. Survival is knowing when to ask for help. Maybe telling the truth was another kind of help. Maybe it was the help I should have received 1 year ago. So I copied the post into the local Facebook group for my old town. Then I posted it on Nextdoor. Then I closed my laptop and waited for the past to stop being a secret. At first, nothing happened. For 10 minutes, there were no comments, no reactions, no messages. I started to feel ridiculous, like I had thrown my pain into the internet and nobody cared. Then one notification appeared. A woman I barely remembered from our neighborhood wrote, "Wait, is this about Rick Harlan?" My stomach dropped when I saw my father's name on the screen. I had not written it in the first line. I had only included it later because I refused to protect him with vagueness. A second comment came from someone who said he had always gotten a bad feeling from my father. Then another person said they remembered my parents coming back from a camping trip without me and claiming I was staying with my grandmother because I was being difficult. That comment made my hands go cold. Someone remembered. Someone had seen the lie from the outside. Within an hour, the post had spread through the town group. People started tagging each other. Some were horrified. Some were skeptical. A few said family matters should stay private, which told me everything I needed to know about how people protect abusers without even realizing it. Then, former customers began speaking up. One woman said my father had screamed at her husband over a billing mistake. Another said his landscaping crew damaged her fence, and he blamed her for having an old fence. A former employee wrote that my father loved calling young workers weak, lazy, useless, anything that made him feel bigger. None of those comments were from me. That mattered. I had opened the door, but my father's own behavior walked through it. By the next morning, the post had hundreds of comments. My mother called 17 times. I did not answer. My grandmother came into the kitchen holding her phone and asked if I was ready for what this might become. I told her I did not know, but I was done carrying their secret for them. Around noon, my father made his first mistake. He commented from his personal account. He wrote that spoiled kids love twisting discipline into abuse, and that he had done what any real parent would do to teach a soft child resilience. I stared at that comment for a long time. He had been given a chance to deny it, apologize, explain, anything. Instead, he confirmed the heart of the story in front of everyone. The replies exploded. People asked if he was admitting he left a minor in the forest. He wrote back that I was old enough to learn. Someone asked why he did not call a ranger. He said people today call authorities for everything because they have no backbone. Someone else asked if he would do the same thing to a client's child. He stopped replying for a while. Then he posted on his business page about cancel culture, disrespectful youth, and people trying to destroy hardworking men. That was his second mistake. Customers who had not even seen my original post now saw his rant. A local community center commented that they would be reviewing their maintenance contract. A church group quietly removed his business from their recommended vendors list. A school parent posted screenshots and asked why anyone would hire a man who thought abandoning a teenager was discipline. By the end of the week, his Google reviews had changed completely. Some people left angry comments, which I did not ask for and did not encourage. But many were real customers finally telling the truth about how he treated them. Rude, unreliable, aggressive, blamed everyone else, would not honor agreements. My father tried to fight every review, and every response made him look worse. He called one customer dishonest. He called another entitled. He wrote in all caps under one review, "People are too soft now." That screenshot went everywhere. My mother finally left a voicemail so broken I almost felt sorry for her. She said the business had lost 3 major jobs in 2 days. She said my father had thrown his phone against the wall. She said he was having chest pains again. Then she said, "Emma, please, just take the post down. You have made your point." I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. I had not made my point. He had made mine. A few days later, I got a message from someone who had worked for him the previous summer. He sent me screenshots of old texts where my father called him useless for asking to leave early during a family emergency. Another person sent a picture of an unfinished yard project my father had abandoned after being paid a deposit. I did not post everything. I was not trying to create a circus. But when people asked if my story was true, I uploaded a photo of the ranger station paperwork my grandmother had kept. I blurred private details. The date was there. My name was there. The report showed I had been found dehydrated and separated from my family after a camping trip. That was enough. The tone of the comments changed after that. Doubt turned into disgust. Even people who did not like public drama started saying there was no excuse. Then my father called me. I did not know the number, so I let it go to voicemail. His voice sounded nothing like the man from the forest. It was rough, tired, almost shaking. He said, "Emma, this has gone far enough." Then he paused. For a second I thought he might actually apologize. Instead he said, "You are ruining my life over one mistake." One mistake. I almost threw the phone across the room. Not because I was shocked, but because even while begging, he still needed to shrink what he had done into something small enough to survive. He kept talking. He said he had wanted me to be strong. He said his own father had done worse. He said he never thought I would be gone that long. Then his voice cracked, and he said, "Please, I am losing everything." I sat on my bed listening to him breathe into the silence. For the first time, he sounded afraid. Not sorry. Afraid. There is a difference. I did not call him back. By then, the business phone was going unanswered. People posted that his office was closed during normal hours. The storage unit owner left a notice on the door. One of his trucks disappeared from the driveway, probably sold or repossessed. Jordan messaged me once. He wrote, "Everyone at school knows." I wrote back, "They know because he did it." This time, he answered, "I know." That was the first honest thing anyone in that house had said to me in a year. My mother sent one final email that week. She said I had destroyed the family. I replied with one sentence. "No, Mom. I survived what destroyed it." Then I blocked her too. I used to think revenge would feel loud, like shouting or smashing something. It did not. It felt like opening a window in a room that had been full of smoke for years. I could finally breathe, and my father, who had spent his whole life controlling the story, had to stand in the open air where everyone could see him. The business closed 2 weeks later. There was no dramatic announcement at first, just a locked door, a disconnected phone line, and a handwritten sign taped to the glass saying operations were temporarily suspended. Everyone knew what temporarily meant. My father had lost the community center contract, 2 long-term landscaping accounts, and the school maintenance job he had bragged about for years. The town that used to treat him like a hard-working family man started treating him like a warning. People stopped waving at him at gas stations. Customers he had known for years crossed the street instead of speaking to him. That might sound small, but for a man like my father, Reputation was oxygen. Without it, he had no idea how to breathe. My grandmother heard from an old neighbor that my parents were selling the house. Too much debt, too many medical bills, too many canceled contracts. My father moved into a spare room above a friend's garage. My mother stayed with a cousin for a while, then found a cheap apartment outside town. Their marriage did not survive the fallout. I do not think it was ever strong. It was just quiet, and people mistake quiet for peace all the time. Jordan eventually asked my grandmother if he could visit Denver for a weekend. I said I was not ready to see him, but I did not stop her. He was still a kid when it happened, and I am still figuring out what forgiveness looks like when someone was both present and powerless. That is the complicated part people do not always want to talk about. Pain does not sort everyone into clean boxes. My father was the one who made the choice. My mother was the one who allowed it. My brother was the one who looked away. They all hurt me differently. They will not all get the same answer from me. A month after the business closed, a letter arrived at my grandmother's house. No return address, but I knew his handwriting before I opened it. The words were careful, like someone had told him what an apology was supposed to sound like. He wrote that he regretted leaving me. He wrote that he had been wrong. He wrote that his father had broken something in him and he had passed that broken thing to me. That line made me stop. For the first time, he had named it correctly. Not strength, not discipline, brokenness. But then, near the end, he wrote, "I hope one day you understand I was trying to prepare you for the world." I folded the letter right there. That was the limit. Even in apology, he still wanted a small corner of the story where he could be the teacher, and I could be the lesson. I put the letter in a drawer and never answered. A few people told me I should feel guilty because he ended up back in the hospital from stress. I do not wish sickness on him. I do not celebrate someone being in a hospital bed. But I also know this. I was 16 when I was hungry, cold, and lost, and nobody from that house came looking for me. I was a child, and they called my fear weakness. He is an adult, and now people want to call his consequences tragedy. I will not carry that double standard anymore. The old hatchet is still in my closet. My grandmother wanted to throw it away, but I kept it. Not because I miss that day. Not because I want to remember the fear. I keep it because it reminds me that I walked out of a forest my own family left me in. It reminds me that the worst thing they did to me did not become the end of me. For a long time, I thought healing meant I had to forgive them. Now I understand healing can also mean telling the truth, setting a boundary, and refusing to return to the people who only miss you when they need you. There is a lesson in that, and I hope anyone listening really hears it. Family should never use love as a disguise for cruelty. Parents are supposed to protect their children, not test how much fear they can survive. And when someone hurts you deeply, forgiveness is not a debt you owe them just because they finally regret the consequences. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is build a peaceful life far away from the people who taught you pain. I am 17 now. I still get scared sometimes. I still hate the sound of tires on gravel, but I also hike with people I trust. I carry water. I carry a whistle. I tell someone where I am going. I learned survival from kindness, not cruelty. And if my father ever wonders whether his lesson worked, here is the answer. Yes, I figured it out. I figured out how to live without him. I figured out how to stop protecting his image. I figured out that being strong does not mean going back to the people who abandoned you. It means knowing you deserve to be saved in the first place. So tell me honestly, if the people who left you behind only came back after losing everything, would you forgive them? Or would you choose peace over blood? Leave your answer in the comments, because I know I am not the only person who has had to survive a family that called cruelty love.